Now it's time to install Composer. Composer is a dependency manager for PHP. All right, what the heck does that mean? Well, when we're writing code, there's a lot of things that we need to be able to make our code work. We're not going to write everything from scratch. That would be silly and a waste of our valuable time. But we need things that we can pull in and be able to reuse. Well, one example would be if we're working in a development environment like you and I always are doing, right? So we're always developing and we need ways to be able to test. So PHP unit would be one of those dependencies. The code sniffers can be other dependencies. Things like that don't exist in our code, but we want to go and pull them in from, say, GitHub or Packages. Okay, so here, if I'm on Packages, you can see there are tons of packages that have been published and are available as modules or as packages that we could pull into our projects. For example, when I'm developing and I'm working on something for myself or something that maybe I'm developing for a client or whatever, I tend to use my fulcrum, right? So here, if I were to pull that up, you can see I've got a bunch of different packages in here that I could pull in. Here's the configuration package, the container package, and here's one that's an extender. So it's an extender for PHP arrays and strings, and there's some stuff for WordPress goodies in there too, some extra functionality for us. So I would use this. I would pull that in as a dependency through Composer, and then I can use it. Now notice within it, it requires that we use Brain Monkey, and here's Mockery, here's PHP unit, here's the code sniffer, and a security checker. These are other packages that I use, okay, that this particular extender module is dependent upon within the development environment. So this DEV you see here says, hey, that's within a development environment. So like what you and I are doing. And then when we package it up for production, right, and we push that, then we would optimize it at that point, and all of these development packages, those development requirements would go away. So we don't ship it with those installed, okay? That's one thing Composer can do for us. There are other things it can do too. So here, I'm going to go back to Beans and show you this. I'm actively working on this every day that it's just fresh in my mind. But if I came in here, you could see that we have Composer right there, and it's a JSON file that configures it. Okay, so within each project, you would have a JSON file called composer.json that would configure what you need in that particular project that you're working on. For example, here we've got a repository. This is XWP's development environment that we use. And then we have some requires. Require would be that it's when it ships too. It's not just in a development mode. Okay. This require-dev, that's what? Well, it's in our development mode. And notice that we're using things like, here's some sniffers, our variable analyzer, PHP compatibility checker. Here is the WordPress coding standard so that we can sniff for that too. Here's PHP unit. Here's Brain Monkey so that we can do simulators of different functions. That's what we do here with that one. This VFS stream, that so that we can simulate working with the file system without actually manipulating the file system. And then here you can see there's that XWP is also in there as well. So these are the requirements, and I just talked about that. The other things that it can do is you can set up scripts. So now we can do some tasks. Okay, and boy, we use this a lot. For example, if I'm going to run the integration test here on Beans, I would have to type out this whole string. Now I'm just going to keep sliding over. That whole string right there is the actual command to have the integration test run. Yeah, right? You don't want to type that. So instead what we do is we go and say Composer, and we're saying, hey, Composer, hello. And then we just type this little shortcut right here, test-integration, and it runs our integration test. It's a shortcut that then says, hey, run this instead. So it looks it up for us. That is really, really, really handy. Here's Sniffer. We can run different ones for Sniffer here too. Okay, so these scripts just make our job so much easier. Well, let's get Composer installed. So let's come back over here and let's see. Let's go right to the getting started. We can come in and say, well, we want to do a global installation. Okay, so right here, click on global. Notice this is for our Linux, Unix, and also our Macs with our OS X. We'll go to global. After running the installer, follow the download page instructions. Let's go open that up, shall we? All right, let's see what this says. So download Composer. To quickly install Composer in the current directory, run the following script to automate blah, blah, blah. Okay, so we've just got to, looks like we're just going to copy and paste that in, right? Well, let's just see what happens if we just copy. So go ahead and just say copy this, the whole thing. Copy, and then we're going to open up iTerm and make sure that we're actually back at the root like that. Okay, so now I'm in the root and I'm just going to paste this in and it runs for us. Okay, let's see what it just did for us. We have, there's one more step here. Go ahead and run that too. There we go. So it went in and said it checked all of the settings. So that was that INI check that it was going to do, and it was going to warn us if our PHP INIs were not correct. And then it let us know that it was successfully installed and told us where that far is installed at, right? So it's just in our root here in our user. And then it gave you an instruction of how to use it. Well, we've got another step we're going to do here in a moment. And then it actually just removed, this unlink actually just removes that setup. Okay, so all of that's been done for us. Let's go back. So now we've run what was on the download page. Now it's time to actually move our Composer file to the directory that's in this path. So you can see we got user local bin Composer. That's what where we want to put it at. So all we have to do is go and copy this. Copy, and it's going to do a move. It's going to take what we just installed here and move it to there. Okay, you ready? All right, so I'm just going to go and paste that. And it said permission denied. Why is that? Well, because that's a sudo command. So we have to go and put in the sudo and now paste. And it's going to ask me for the password. Make sure that you put your password in there too. And there, now it's actually installed it in the right place. You want to see that? So if we do an ls-la, let's see if that far file is still in here. Okay, I'm not seeing it. Matter of fact, let's just go ahead. I'm going to show it to you instead here in Pathfinder. Okay, so here I'm going to go to my home directory, and then we're going to go and just look at the different files. Okay, so I don't see that far file there. Where did it put it at? Do you remember? Well, what did it say? It would be in user local bin Composer. That's where it actually put it at. Let's go and check that out and see if we can find, hey, where's that located at? Let's do cd user local. Okay, and if we do an ls in here, there should be a bin. Okay, let's see. There's the bin directory right there. Let's cd into bin. Okay, so now I'm just going to look at this directory right here and see what we have. All right. If we come, oh, there's Composer right there. Okay, so it did put it in there. Now, how can we check to see if it's actually in the right spot? Well, right here, it says just run Composer instead of having to run this whole thing. So by moving that, what we did was we set this up so that we can just run Composer now because it's in our bin. So let's do that now. We're just going to type Composer, and notice that, here, let me expand this out for you. Notice that you get this lovely little graphic up here, and then you get a bunch of help information. So now we've actually installed Composer at a global level. So it's available to us in every project that we work on. That's what we wanted to do. Okay, did you get this far? So if you just type Composer, you got that. Now, if you want to look at the help, notice that it's -h or -- help. Okay, so that's one thing that you could do. So then you could see what some of the commands are. So we can go and do composer-h. Well, if I can spell, composer-h, like that. And here you can see it gives us some help information. All right. If you're new to Composer, you can go through the documentation here, or as we're working on things together, we'll be working on, I can show you how to use Composer. That's another way. The other thing to do is just take a look at how it's laid out. It simply is just defining a JSON file in your project and putting in the information that you need. For example, these development environment tools for you so that you can run testing and sniffing, right? And checking the security, checking different things within your project. All that's doing is making your code better.